A Less Than Royal Narcissist, Part 23. Why is Harry behaving as he is? Why has Prince Harry distanced himself so readily from the royal family? Why has he felt compelled to talk about private family matters in public forums? Why is it that he's failing to see that he is being manipulated? Why, at times, is he appearing as entitled, spoiled, and difficult? These are questions that people have asked, and of a similar vein. Why is Prince Harry behaving in this manner? Why can't he see what's going on? In essence, the reason why Prince Harry is behaving as he is because he is accepting the narrative that he is being given by the narcissist. When it comes to controlling an individual, as you will know from my other work, that the narcissism operates to ensure that the narcissist controls everybody around them. This does not mean that the narcissism causes the narcissist to control each and every person that they know. That would be impossible. It isn't that the narcissist is controlling those individuals each and every day, moment by moment. There wouldn't be enough time in the day to attend to that. No, what the narcissism does is to ensure that when a person comes on the radar of the narcissist, that they are controlled. Sometimes no steps need to be taken because the individual demonstrates that they are under control. So, for example, if somebody comes along and goes, "Hey, how are you doing? I really like that suit that you're wearing," and says that to the narcissist, they are then signalling through the provision of that positive fuel that they are under control, and the narcissist doesn't have a problem. And then if that person has a polite chat with the narcissist, continuing to signal that they're under control, and then leaves, there's been no threat to the narcissist's control. And as soon as that person has walked away, they drop off the radar. And the necessity of controlling them is irrelevant because they are not live, if you will. They are not on the narcissist's radar at that point. When it comes to the narcissist being involved with the intimate partner primary source, because that individual, the spouse, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the partner, the cohab, is the most important person within the narcissist fuel matrix. They cater to the prime aims to a greater extent than anybody else. That means that the narcissist, of course, will invariably be having plenty of interaction with them. Not necessarily all of the time. People have to go to work, people go and see friends, etc. But of all of the appliances, the primary source is the one that the narcissist interacts with the most. Accordingly, that individual is the one that must be controlled the most effectively. And of course, if they are operating in a way which threatens the narcissist's control, the narcissist must take remedial action to ensure that the control is asserted. When it comes to the question of control, some people are confused by what that means. It isn't necessarily making the individual do certain things. It can just as much be about preventing the individual doing something. So, for instance, it might be compelling the intimate partner primary source to give money to the narcissist. But it might be about causing the intimate partner primary source to cease their criticism of the narcissist. So the control doesn't necessarily mean making the intimate partner primary source always be doing things on the part of the narcissist. It means keeping them under control so that they don't threaten control. And control can be threatened by refusing to do something for the narcissist or doing something which is contrary to the interests of the narcissist. And in order to assert this control, as you know, the narcissist utilizes various different manipulations, some benign and some malign, but they're always manipulations because they're coming from a narcissist. The victim accepts the narcissist narrative, and that is what has happened with Prince Harry. He believes that the things that he has done and the things that he is doing are genuinely sensible steps. He doesn't think to himself, this is clearly moronic what I'm doing, but I'll do it anyway. He has been led to believe that the steps that he is engaging in are right and proper. And that is as a consequence of the effect of the control that's been asserted on him by Meghan Markle and his own emotional thinking. Those two factors are working in tandem to make Prince Harry believe that what he is doing is appropriate. What is the most effective way to get somebody to do something for you? To have them believe in the thing that you want them to do. That takes the least effort. It is in effect self-motivated. For instance, one could point a gun at somebody else and say, I want you to do this. And most people would probably comply because they don't want to be shot. But of course, leaving aside issues of having access to a firearm, the illegality associated with that, and the consequences that can flow, it's far more effective if you are able to cause that person to do what you want because they feel that they made that decision themselves. They feel that they are in control. So, take for example, a man comes up to you and his stated aim is that he wants to get $100,000 from you so that he can spend it on cocaine, hookers, and a fast car. So he says to you, and he's there with a flashy suit on, slicked back black hair, a million megawatt smile, a thin pencil moustache, and he says, hi, would you give me $100,000 so I can spend it on blow, prostitutes, and a fast car? Your answer will be no. Why? It's clearly a bad idea. You are not going to make a decision that you patently see as a bad one. So instead, that individual must come up with an alternative route to get what he wants. So instead, he sets himself up in a little office, wearing an ordinary suit with a homely secretary with some false certificates on the wall, and he creates advertisements which suggest that he is given good investment advice. And he sends out flyers. Or you receive a cold call. And he explains to you that if you invest just $1,000, in 28 days' time, you'll receive $3,000 return. You can afford $1,000, and that sounds like a useful return, and you don't have to wait too long. So you agree, after discussion with him, where he explains it in terms which appear to make sense, and that there appears to be a valid investment vehicle. So you invest $1,000. Lo and behold, 28 days later, you get $3,000 back, including your original investment. He then contacts you again. I have a new investment opportunity for you. This time, $3,000 in, $10,000 back in 28 days' time. Well, you're already up on the money, why not? You invest the $3,000 and surely thereafter, you receive $10,000 back, including your original investment. He contacts you again. This time, it's a $20,000 investment with a $50,000 return. You have the money available, you invest, 28 days later, you get your $50,000. 3 investments, 3 returns. He's always delivered on time, on the amount, and is gaining your trust. He then contacts you. I have a really good investment for you. It's a $100,000 investment. I know it's a bit of a step up from what we've discussed previously, and if it isn't for you, don't worry. I've got plenty of other people who are interested, but I wanted to offer this to you as an established client of mine. It's a $500,000 return, which will be in 2 months. And you decide, well, yes, that's such a good opportunity. You don't want to pass it up. You could pay off your mortgage and then some. And You've already made money from him, so let's go along with the investment. So you invested. 2 months goes by and you hear nothing. So you think you'll give him a call, and you find that the number is unobtainable. You then decide, it's okay, I'll pay a visit to his office. And when you arrive there, you find 20 other irate people who are all searching for this individual, only to find that the office is deserted. You've all been victims of a long-term fraud. And this individual has now obtained $100,000 from all of you. Of course, you were part of a Ponzi scheme, and he has disappeared off to indulge in the cocaine, the prostitutes, and the fast cars, having taken all of the money. And in those circumstances, he has got precisely what he wanted, the $100,000. He's had to go by a more circuitous route, but the reason that you invested it, even though it's ended up precisely in the same place as it has from the man in the first example, is because you believed that what you were doing was a good idea. And this is what is happening with Prince Harry. He's being conned, but he doesn't realise it. He's being conned because he's being manipulated, and he's being conned by his emotional thinking, which arises as a consequence of him being an empathic victim. He doesn't actually know what he's dealing with. So how can he recognise that he's being manipulated if he doesn't know what to look for? Well, of course, you might think, well, it's obvious. It's obvious to you on the outside, and of course there are many people who can't see it themselves even on the outside, but that's a different question. But for him, he's caught up in the middle of this, and he's got an individual who has previously flattered him, been kind, apparently loving him, probably has given him a bit of spicy poontang, and it's all great guns for him. An individual who's been outgoing, sympathetic to his troubles, and as I've explained in previous videos, will have shown sympathy for the upbringing that he's had. And then, of course, as part of the ongoing manipulation, which will have been done on the pretext of appearing to care for Harry, I only have your interests at heart, darling. You perhaps haven't seen it, but I can as being a newcomer. To say to him, do you realise that your father can be awkward with you at times? Or your brother and his wife, I don't think they like us. I think they're envious of the success that we're enjoying because they have to behave themselves more because he's heir to the throne. And these little suggestions are thrown in there, not consciously, but unconsciously by Meghan Markle as part of her narcissism controlling him, dividing him, isolating him, making him believe that she cares about him and pointing out things that he isn't able to see because he's too close to the action. Of course, those things, some of them don't exist and some of them will. The items that do exist resonate with Harry. Well, yes, I've kind of thought that myself, and now you come to point it out, I can understand what you're driving at. It resonates with him. It affords an understanding for him of what he's actually dealing with. And in other instances where he might not quite see it, he faces a choice. Do I doubt my wife? Do I cause a problem with my wife? And of course, in other times, perhaps she's been a bit sulky with me, has made threats, perhaps has even been downright nasty. Or do I keep the peace? Because she's been right about other things about these people before. And therefore, I'll accept what she has to say to me. Because one, it's easier to do that. And two, actually, I can kind of see that she's right. So even if he had an element of doubt, he is led by the manipulative nature of what he's experiencing into accepting the narrative that he's being fed. Remember, Meghan Markle isn't doing this consciously. It's part of the unconscious control that she's asserting over him. She genuinely believes that she's acting in his best interests. Many narcissists do. But she's not. She's controlling him, and she's feeding him a particular narrative, which he then swallows up as a consequence of not realizing what he's dealing with and the obscuring impact of his emotional thinking. Those of you who have been involved with narcissists will recognize this. The fact that occasionally you may have thought something was off, but you didn't act on it. And the reason being was that you thought it was easier to keep the peace by accepting what you were being told, or that what you were being told did have a degree of resonance with you, that you did realise that your father could be difficult at times, and therefore, with the narcissist spouse pointing this out to you, it accords with your own belief. However, it goes beyond that, because rather than just pointing out that your father was difficult, you were then isolated from your father by saying, I don't think we should spend as much time with him, or you want to watch out, he's always putting you down. And of course, lies are told by the narcissist in terms of, your dad said this about you, your mother said this about you, your friends think this about you. And the victim, driven by their empathic trait of honesty, trusts what they're being told, rather than actually going and finding out for themselves if these things have actually been said. And of course, where there has been some friction, it sounds plausible, because many narcissists operate with this plausibility. It sounds plausible that these things have been said about you, and therefore you accept them. And, like an ever-decreasing circle, you get drawn closer and tighter to the narcissist as we wind you in. And the more that you listen to the narcissist, the more that you're isolated from those perceived threats that the narcissist has unconsciously identified. And therefore, what happens? The other members of the family say, we're not seeing as much of you. And then you're told by the narcissist, see, that's them trying to control you, complaining that you don't see. Do they not realise that you're a nude father and that you don't have time to spend with them? How selfish of them to make you feel guilty. And of course, those innocent family members are just explaining, quite in a straightforward manner, we don't see as much of you. We would like to see more of you. But the narcissist takes this protestation and twists it and uses it to pour poison into the mind of the victim, the intimate partner primary source, to suggest that this declaration is being used to make the victim feel guilty, to make the victim feel under a compulsion, that they're not being considerate. And the victim buys into this narrative. Prince Harry honestly believes that the steps that he has taken are appropriate. He believes that it was right to distance himself from the royal family. He believes it's right that he should remove himself from the United Kingdom, because he has seen adverse press coverage and believes that it is his duty, his empathic trait of caring and compassion, to protect his small family from that press intrusion. But what he doesn't realise is that that is being hijacked by the narcissist to isolate him from supportive factors within his extended family, making him easier to control. As an empathic victim, he has an addiction to narcissists. This creates something called emotional thinking. This isn't being emotional, it is making decisions in the absence of logic. So, for example, many individuals who are on the receiving end of treatment from a narcissist want to get answers because their empathic truth-seeker trait is corrupted by their emotional thinking. They think to themselves, I don't understand why this person has done this to me. I don't understand why he has gone off with this other woman. I need answers from him. I need to gain closure. I need to understand what has happened to me. I want him to understand how much he has hurt me. And therefore, this victim goes and approaches the narcissist and says, why is it that you went off with her over me? The victim doesn't realise that they're dealing with a narcissist, and their question threatens the narcissist's control. So the narcissist, driven by the narcissism, has to reject that threat to control by, for instance, explaining how that new person is absolutely fantastic and how the person who has just been dumped is horrible. And of course, the person who's been dumped thinks, I'm just as good looking as them. I've done so much for you. I did all of these things for you. I have a better job than that person. I've got more money than that person. I'm more intelligent than that person. Why have you chosen them over me? It doesn't make any sense. And of course, although it makes no sense to them in their world, it makes perfect sense in the world of the narcissist. And when they try and get the narcissist to understand it from their point of view, they are threatening that narcissist's control of them. So what then happens is the narcissist responds by rejecting what they are saying, by saying, oh, she's superior to you. Because in his world, that person is. And therefore, what that then means is the victim is all the more confused. So what has their attempt to gain closure by having this conversation from the narcissist achieved? Fuck all. and in actual fact has caused problems for them. First, they've given fuel to the narcissist by talking to the narcissist. This is what the narcissist wants. Narcissist 1, victim nil. 2, they've suffered an adverse consequence. They wanted to get answers, and they haven't. Narcissist 2, victim nil. They've suffered an adverse consequence because they feel upset about hearing how this new person is superior to them, and it doesn't make any sense. They're hurt, confused, angry. Narcissist 3, victim nil. Fourthly, they have interacted with the narcissist, and interaction increases the emotional thinking further. Own goal scored by victim. Narcissist 4, victim nil. This increased emotional thinking means that it still doesn't make any sense to them, and that they are not using logic. They are being led along by the conning emotional thinking, which also can engender certain feelings within them, so that emotional thinking means that the victim doesn't use logic, but it also can make the pain last longer, the hurt last longer, the anger continue, because it has enough strength to cause the victim to feel those things, which mislead them into launching a tirade against the narcissist because they're angry. What does that tirade achieve? Nothing. It gave fuel to the narcissist. The narcissist lashed out in return, adverse consequence, and the emotional thinking has been heightened further. So the supposed sensible suggestion of, I will go and talk to the narcissist and get answers from them, is emotional thinking, because it's the wrong thing to do. And consequently, what is happening to Prince Harry is that his addiction sits there saying, feed me. And what it wants him to do is keep interacting with Meghan Markle. And of course, that's what's happening. Because they live together, they communicate with one another, he does things for her, he talks about her, he thinks about her. So his addiction is being fed in a huge way each and every day, which means that his emotional thinking is sky high. So he's not seeing clearly. So if somebody says to him, Harry, look mate, she's taken you to Canada, now she's taking you to California, you've fallen out with your dad, you've fallen out with your brother in effect, you're smearing the institution that you've been part of all of this time, you're turning your back on people, you're away from your friends. Can't you see that you're being manipulated and isolated? He can't, because his emotional thinking essentially whispers in his ear and says, what a load of hogwash. You know the reason that you're out here. It's because you're protecting your family. He believes that. He believes that that's the honest and sensible reason why he's doing what he's doing. He can't see that under the pretext of protecting his family, of ensuring that his wife doesn't fall before the same fate as that which happened to his mother, he can't see that this is being used against him. He can't see that this is a method of manipulating him. He thinks that the falling out with the various people is justified. He may feel sad about it, but ultimately thinks this is what has had to happen because of the way that they've treated me and my wife. And no matter how many times somebody sits down with him and tries to explain this to him, he can't see it. He's blinded by his emotional thinking. He is in the grip of the manipulations to such a degree he can't see through them. And this is very common for a victim of a narcissist. And all of those of you who are listening, who have been in this position or remain in this position, will fully understand what I'm referring to. You don't see all of the benign manipulations when you are love-bombed, when you are flattered and bribed and treated like a king or queen and drawn in. You fail to understand the real nature of the devaluing behaviour. And it's only after a sustained period of devaluation that some people start to think something isn't right here. More usually, it's when the narcissist has dumped them and they go seeking answers. Because by virtue of the narcissist dumping them, disengaging from them, that causes a reduction in emotional thinking because they are not with the narcissist as often. And therefore, although it doesn't give them complete clarity, it creates a window of understanding that can open, so they start to think, I need to find out why this has happened. And eventually, after searching at silent treatments or blowing hot and cold or whatever it might be, they end up finding about narcissism. and the most fortunate find themselves at my doorstep and accessing my work, because there they will get all of the answers that they need. Prince Harry is nowhere near that stage. And every time someone if anybody is trying, and they may well have tried to do this, for instance, when Prince William said, perhaps take things a little more slowly, Prince Harry will have been thinking, what's the point? I love her. We get on brilliantly. She's really into me. She's really kind. We have so much fun together. Why would I want to take things more slowly? I don't see the need. And of course, that's because at that juncture, because he was interacting with a narcissist, his emotional thinking was so high he couldn't see the red flags as they were presenting. And he still can't see them. He honestly believes that the things that he is doing are appropriate to protect his family. He doesn't see that the steps that he's taking are being used against him. He doesn't see that he comes across as entitled or spoilt. And there are those, of course, that think, well, these behaviours that he's engaging in, that's not empathic of him. He must be a narcissist. No, he's not. Believe me, I consult with people, and have seen it with regard to my own victims, that somebody who is a jolly decent person can turn into a complete harpy. And those of you listening who have been there and are coming out the other side will look back upon the person that you were in the ensnarement and often think, who the hell did I become? I was lashing out at people. I was always angry. I was argumentative. I was quizzing people. I turned into a thoroughly unpleasant person. I became selfish. I became nasty. And that is because your emotional empathy is eroded by the abuse that you're on the receiving end of. That's also affecting Prince Harry. His emotional empathy for his extended family members is being eroded by the abuse that he's receiving, although he doesn't see that it's abuse. Furthermore, his emotional thinking gets hold of his traits and corrupts them to cause him to remain ensnared. It gets hold of the narcissistic traits of anger, so he may well comment adversely about the extended members of his family. It gets hold of the narcissistic trait of resentment. He resents the treatment that he believes that they are experiencing and therefore responds accordingly. This has happened at points in Harry's life previously, where he has behaved in a manner where one would question what was going through his mind at the time. He's not a saint, and he makes mistakes. And at the current time, as a consequence of the fact that he is being controlled on a daily basis, but he can't see it because of the blinding effect of his emotional thinking, he is doing things which he thinks are right, but at some future point, should he be when he's disengaged from, or should he escape, and he starts to gain clarity, he will look back and see, I thought I was doing the right thing at that point. Now I can see I wasn't. Now I can see actually I was being played. I was being manipulated. Many people take a long time to get there. Some never do. And even when they do start to see it for what it is, they continue to question it, finding it difficult to grasp, finding it difficult to understand precisely what it is that they were experiencing. It doesn't make sense. But at this point in time, Harry is behaving in the way that he is because he is subject on a daily basis to the narrative of Meghan Markle, the control that she asserts over him with the pity plays, with the threats, with the imposition of using guilt, hope, promised gain, and other manipulations, no doubt, commensurate with her status as a mid-range narcissist. And the fact that his emotional thinking is so high, he just cannot see what it is that he's dealing with, and he thinks the problem lies elsewhere and not with her. And that every time somebody tries to point out to him that she is the problem, he, through his emotional thinking, interprets that as, you're just being unpleasant about her, you're being racist, you're being unfair, you just have it in for her, you're not giving her a chance. When that person is trying to point it out to him with complete bona fides, but he just can't see it. It is extremely common for the victim of the narcissist to not be able to see what is happening, and that when people try and point it out to them, rather than go, oh, you're right, they turn against the individual trying to help them because they think that that individual is interfering, is casting aspersions unnecessarily upon their spouse, because of the nature of their addiction to that narcissist and the impact of emotional thinking, so they don't end up seeing what it really is. Harry is behaving as he is because he's in the grip of a narcissist. He is acting in the way that he is because he thinks that what he's doing is right, but it's not, and he can't see it because he's blinded by his emotional thinking. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.